Oleg Brega. I'm 40 and I come from Republic of Moldova. This is a small country, that's why we are only 2 persons from that country. But I also can represent Romania because I'm a Romanian speaker and I have a double citizenship. And on the internet I'm expressing for all the Romanians. That's why my slides, my print screens will be also in Romanian, but in Russian also, because we found a lot of hate speech coming from the East, and we also understand the Russian in our small country. I started as a filmmaker and also as a journalist 12 years ago. Then my radio talk show was closed, named Hyde Park. That's why we organized in an NGO, and we started to fight against censorship, of course, because the talk show was closed. And we had 8 years of communist government. We had to fight in the street for freedom of expression, to fight in the court for freedom of assembly. We won at least 6 cases against the government in the European Court of Human Rights. Now we have another government, non-communist, liberal democratic, so we can express freely in the press, on the internet, in the streets. That's why we moved to the internet, and our NGO Hyde Park, which promotes freedom of expression, faced another problem, which is named hate speech. Not everybody who uses this tool of expression, word or pictures or movies, not everybody uses this tool in a good way. We found, especially on the social media, on the Facebook, and also on a Russian Facebook named Kontakte, in the contact, vc.com, we found a lot of pictures or slogans or videos which made us attentive and forced us to find a solution, a possibility to report such kind of expression. On the Facebook, on YouTube, we found such instruments to report and to obtain a deletion or a withdrawal of that picture or message. On Kontakte.com, on that Russian Facebook, we didn't find any instruments, or they don't respond to our messages. And we find such kind of messages against Islamic persons, against gypsies, and even if you can observe this user on Facebook is named "Will Kill All the Gypsies," and it still exists on Facebook. We couldn't stop him to spread such kind of hate speech. But hate speech is not every time hating. It can start with a joke. You can joke like this: find the gypsy here. You'll not find him because he's a human also. And after that line, I'm joking. He's stealing somewhere. So he's busy, he's not here, the gypsy. So they start joking about gypsies and come to this kind of hate speech. Or you can just spread a message, a speech made by others. You can pretend you are an observer or you are a human rights activist. You just take that message, hate speech, and spread it to show to the people what's happening, but without any comments. So you spread the hate speech, like this person did. He took from Unimedia a comment, published it on his Facebook account, and he or she pretends that he is not involved in this hate speech, but he just or she just spread a hate speech, which you can see here is against gypsies, against masonry, against Jews, and so on. Another situation, they spread only an official document made by an NGO, nothing dangerous, nothing important, but with the comment, translated in some languages, death to those, and so on. And we reported this to Facebook. They didn't stop this comment, this picture. Picture is inoffensive, not important at all, but the comment is very dangerous. Another kind of messages of course, on Facebook, because Romania has a common border with Hungary, so they have a kind of hate against Hungarians. And this question is, what will you kill, a gypsy or a Hungarian? Such kind of unoffensive message. They target even me, because I fight for human rights, against discrimination, and so on. They publish my picture and they say I'm a suspect person. I'm used with this. I have some court cases against some haters. Some of them are won by me, using some NGOs, using very good lawyers, and they were obliged to pay money and to take off the messages. But other journalists, which are not involved like me civically, they just filmed a gay pride in Chisinau, and they became again as a target for the haters. They comment here, she is for surely one of them. And immediately after that, a colored picture, but she could be a journalist. So she's for surely one of them, gay persons, transsexuals, and so on, but she could be a journalist. It starts not very dangerous, but it comes to this kind of messages. Death to faggots, death to transsexuals, and this name will kill all the gypsies. Or if you come from Russia, from Ukraine, you'll understand this message against people from Caucasus or from Asia, which are hated by the haters from Russia, from Ukraine. This FOT site is free of tolerance from Ukraine. Another one from Vkontakte, Russian Legion from Moldova, their branch in Moldova, are spread messages against Jews, and they show two children, one of them demonized, he is Jew, yes. And you can watch a white Slavianian, a white child, which is much, much better. I'll make a lot of noise with this microphone. Thank you. Wow. I hope I will not spread too much hate with this microphone. Another message against gay people, you should do like this, they say. You should hit them. And another joke, the gay prides should look like this only. And you can remember, you can recognize pictures from the death camps in Nazi Germany. They, the haters, they hate even other haters. I've met this picture on Russia Legion from Moldova. They hate Romanian Legion from Moldova because one of them are Romanians, but in the same Moldova, so they hate each other. And they compare with the gypsies. Those and those are gypsies because they declare as being as Romanians. Contacti.com managed to respond to our demands of stopping this hate speech only with this message. They stopped hate speech only to Western countries, but from Moldova, from Russia, you can access those groups. Here in Western countries, I've made this information. I can't access that group. In Moldova, I can still access, I can still follow them. I'm banned on those groups when I go in with my name and with my password. But when I change the username or I go without any usernames, I can see what they publish. That's why maybe Contacti.com now has big troubles with the Western investors. At least the Guardian says some of them are taking back their money, and I think this is a good response from the West. They should do the same with Odnoklassniki, another Russian Facebook, which is full of hate speech, which is full of harmful expression. And also maybe with other, they have mail.ru and so on. But let's come back to Facebook, which is from the West, from the Bastion de la Démocratie, from USA. They still accept this account, which says on his front page, death to the colored people, death to those mixed color, death to those to support them. So this is very dangerous account, very dangerous message, and they still accept it. I can observe it some weeks. This is the content provided by that account, death to gypsies. And here is a part of my reporting history. I reported to Facebook that message, this one, omorâm toți țiganii, will kill all the gypsies, and this share wasn't removed. You can watch the response from Mr. Zuckerberg or their staff, his staff. What can we do in such kind of situations? We can start petitions. We can go in the court with them. With whom? With Michael Zuckerberg, with Durov or Contacti, with whom? When the account is secret, is anonymous. You can't find this profile, this real person. It can be a she, it can be a he, or they can be a group, organized group. What can we do facing this kind of threats? What kind of dangers you meet in your area? Only open or with masks on the face? Only Nazi, open Nazis? Or they say they are only intellectuals publishing such kind of messages? The white are Romanians, the black persons are foreigners, and you see the real danger for Romania. They become more and more, and we have to give no tolerance to this situation. And I asked Facebook to remove this picture. They said we don't have to remove it. It is part of human rights or freedom of expression. Do you think this picture is freedom of expression, or you don't think this? Death to the crows, or blackbirds. Crows. Death to the crows. But this is a name for gypsies. It can be also applied to any colored people. If you are not ready to talk, to comment about this, I'll show you some videos made by an organized group in Moldova, but it comes from Russia, from Ukraine and other Eastern countries, named Occupy Pedophilia or Restruct. And they started to publish several months ago in Moldova such kind of videos targeting pedophiles, but they for sure target homosexuals and even supporters of LGBT rights. That this was the first movie made by them. You can see them openly without masks. I reported this video to our prosecutors, to the police, and they responded that this guy accepted to play a role in this movie. They didn't at all interview and talk with him. They talked only with this guy, and he explained that that was a movie played by an actor, amateur actor, and this is a message against pedophilia. So still we don't have a criminal file against this group. And they still act and they still publish such kind of videos. Our prosecutor, a woman, watched this video and she didn't find anything offensive or dangerous in this kind of punishment made by whom? By civil persons which fight pedophilia. That was a freely agreed play or action. Can you believe this? And at the end, they give him to drink some urine, human urine. And you can see the message on his breast, LGBT, not pedophile. So they lie. They target LGBT persons, not, this is the end. And that woman, prosecutor, didn't see anything dangerous in this. And she refused to open a criminal file case. Another victim, which could be, but nobody is sure, could be a Jew. They started to wear masks on their face, and they even draw a star on his breast. You can see the message. They target not only LGBT persons, but everybody, like any haters, any neo-Nazis do. I also contacted officials about this video. I copied it. I reported it on Facebook, on Odnoklasniki, on YouTube. Some stopped it, but Vkontakte didn't stop, and this film is still available in many copies on Vkontakte. It stopped, but it doesn't matter. I have also a scary movie made by a TV station in Moldova, which glorifies the movement. They explain this is an interesting activity. So, official press, commercial press can danger as much as internet can do if it's not smart enough to computer to react. And maybe this is the last video. They say this is a son of a prosecutor. So they made a trap to him on the internet, or they pretend they did. They invited him to somebody's house, and they played this film with him. And this is their sign, because their leader from Russia, Tesak, had a broken finger. That's why he shows this hand with a broken finger. And they support him, Tesak. Now he is in jail, but not for hate speech, but for other troubles with the state. He was arrested in Cuba. And they organize openly protests in favor of him to be freed, to be liberated. Now, let's talk about this. Maybe you'll not have a microphone, but it's better. If you permit me, I'll film you also, like I did with me, because the organizers don't want to film or to broadcast our unconference. I think it can be interesting. We can stop it. We can even ban it, but we can't. It's on Contacte, available even now. You can enter Contacte/restruct or Occupy movement, and you'll find a lot of movies like this. And their groups have a dangerous growing number of members and activists. And I think we should do something more than reporting and waiting for a change. Let's start with a discussion about it. How high do you think should be our understanding of freedom of expression? How sensible should we be facing these kind of messages, of actions, of groups? Yeah?
Thank you for this example. I don't know if everyone can hear me okay. I'm fighting a cold. My name is Angela, and together with my colleague Nanjira, we're both from iHub, and we've been running a project called Umati. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Swahili for Crowd, basically monitoring online hate speech over the past year and a half. So your examples here actually fit perfectly with our existing work. And I would love to talk more maybe even after this. But this case is actually not unique. As you probably know, there are many examples like this around the world. We actually have some colleagues who are with us here at SIF from Burma, Myanmar, who are also running something similar called the Panzagar movement, or flower speech, as a way to counter a lot of the dangerous speech that they're finding online. I have a couple of questions in addition to also just giving you a bit of context. You've used the word dangerous several times, as you were saying, oh, this was a very dangerous account, for example. And actually, this is something that we've adopted to help us to better categorize between what is dangerous speech or speech that has the potential to catalyze violence, and also maintaining freedom of expression. Because I think it's a very fine balance that we also need to be wary of. Just saying, well, this is ugly, horrible, very bad speech, but maybe some speech has the right to be protected under freedom of expression, whereas other speech can potentially incite or catalyze violence, and that is probably, should not be allowed online or even offline. So we've been working together with actually a growing community of practitioners around better understanding these nuances of speech. And so I just wanted to present that up there, and also better understand how you decided what to flag, what not to flag. And also we are curious to see, you said prevent and fight hate speech. In the Kenyan context, one of the things we noticed, and we've continued to monitor over the past year and a half actually, so you can check out more of our work online, Umati. And we've noticed that there is actually something, what we've been calling in a blanket term, counter speech. So as you see, when people put out an individual instance of dangerous speech, we actually then see folks like yourself probably who actually think it's awful stuff and actually respond and help to, in some ways, temper some of the hate and dangerous speech online. So those are some of the things that we're starting to think may actually help to counter some of the dangerous speech, because censorship is a very scary road to go down. And if we only rely on Facebook to take down all the messages, or we only rely on governments to shut down these pages, that could also be a very scary path that we set up to go down. So just wanted to share that and maybe hear a bit more about how you decided when something was dangerous or not, or hateful or not.
That is an invitation to discuss about it. I don't have explanations or good answers for your question. Let's talk about it, especially because you said this line between freedom of expression and hate speech is very tiny and very moving. It depends on the region, it depends on historical moment and so on.
Yep. It's a little bit to continue in the same line with my colleague. My name is Ayman Mhanna, I come from Lebanon. We say that my freedom ends when someone else's freedom starts. Unfortunately, there are so many people who want to twist that, saying that my freedom ends where someone else's beliefs start. So we must be very wary not to cross that line, because by doing something really good, attacking hate speech, preventing hate speech, we'll be allowing, mainly, we're talking here about lots of religious organizations, to use our kind of reporting against hate speech to block any perceived criticism of one religion. So basically, whenever someone criticizes a religion, it becomes as if it's hate speech, and it's really different. Let's not go back now and discuss in details everything that was done in the Danish media case and so many other cases. If we open that door to any criticism of any religious figure becomes an attack on everybody from that religion, we'll be doing something that's not in the service of freedom of expression. For example, in my country, our former president submitted a request to the UN to come up with a UN resolution against criticizing religious figures and prophets, etc. And we were part of the groups in Lebanon who opposed this initiative, because it's such a thin line that can be used by extremely conservative people and people who actually promote hate speech otherwise against the others, their definition of others. So this is why, if we need to talk about it, let's talk about it in very precise examples with very precise mechanisms, rather than opening it and be used unwillingly as a Trojan horse for other.
I hope nobody doubts this account should be stopped on Facebook. Let's kill all the gypsies.
Totally.
And with other connections, all the colored people and those who support them. You can see this front page. Let's go back to this kind of pictures. How dangerous is this message?
So as part of our framework, just to maybe help you you're asking questions of what is it that you look at to decide if it's dangerous. And I know several folks in the audience, there are different definitions, and dangerous speech isn't a legal definition, and I'm not a lawyer, but basically as practitioners, we decided to use it because we needed something that could help us to decide, is this dangerous or not? Because I think maybe some of the examples you've shown are very clear-cut, but you'll find that there are many gray examples, right? So it's usually not very clear-cut to decide, is this hateful or not? Is this dangerous or not? You said some of these are jokes. Would you categorize the jokes as something that shouldn't be put out there? So those are the types of challenges that we've been having on the monitoring side as we look to the online space. Some of the things we look at especially are the speaker, how influential the speaker is at the audience. Is the audience receptive to this kind of messaging? And also the context, obviously the social historical context, the speech act itself, so what is it actually saying? And finally, the means of disseminating it, or the medium. Is it in mother tongue? In the Kenyan context, 42 different languages that are spoken. So often people say that mother tongue hits them to the core or to the gut a lot more. So communicating something in English versus Swahili versus mother tongue has a different impression on the listener or on the reader. So those are the kinds of things that we actually look at through Mati Project. So I don't know if others have other...
In this case, Facebook refused to stop this message, and it generated another message, death to those who are not good color.
Just a question though, so what if Facebook closed this account down? What's to stop him from setting up another one tomorrow? So I think sometimes we need to also think beyond just shutting down accounts, because it's so easy to set up another social media account. So how do we actually get at the core of what it is, which is that this person feels this much hate against something or wants to propagate it. So how do we really target that? And here we're looking at the online space, but what's happening offline? Do we have any idea? Maybe this person you've shown us some videos, so obviously there's stuff happening offline as well. And for us as Umati, we've been trying to better understand that connection as well, online and offline.
Okay, let's listen to your opinion.
I'm Pirong Ramasura. I'm from Thailand. I'm from academia. We just finished a project for the National Research Council of Thailand on hate speech. We look at 3 different medium, print, online, and broadcasting. It's a huge project. I was responsible for the online one. And what we found, we were using different classifications, like level of severity of hate speech. And the first starting with unintentional discrimination. But this is not counted as hate speech. I mean, it's a beginning of hate speech, but we didn't really count it as hate speech yet. And the second one would be deliberate discrimination, and that's something to watch out for. But the third level is incitement of hatred, like creating misunderstanding, making the other group being perceived as threats to your group. And the last level, the highest level, would be incitement of violence against the target group. So in the third and the fourth levels are the ones that we really look out for. But when we look in different space, in online space. We look in Facebook, in online forum, and in YouTube. We found that YouTube contained the most of the fourth levels, but Facebook, and this is all in Thai, in my own language. And we found the third level, incitement of hatred, Facebook to have the most prevalent in the third level, that is incitement of hatred. So, we try to come up with a sort of regulatory approach. And you're really right. I mean, you can't just put things out of context, but just by focusing on the verbal, on the text or the graphics or the moving pictures, you have to really put things in context, because a lot of times you could see this not only as free speech but as a release, because people release is like a catharsis. People release that really strong emotion. I'm not saying it's good, but I mean you have to really put it. If there is a crisis. Like in Thailand, we have a really polarization between two groups of people, the red shirt and the yellow shirt. And people, this is kind of a color-coded politics in the country. And we have so much hatred aired against one another online. But it doesn't really amount to real violence. People were just like putting it out there. But in one instance, somebody on the red shirt side was there was like a crackdown on the red shirt protesters way back in 2010, and somebody on the red shirt side was broadcasting. This is not online. Was broadcasting on community radio that or two of our brethren, two of our red-shirt brothers are being killed at the government house in this certain province. But it was a total lie. Nobody got killed. So, and he was propagating for the other red shirt to go and burn down that government house. And they all did. And that's, you know, to me, is counted as the highest level of hate speech. And just to add to your point about belief, we probably remember the case about innocence of Muslims. And, sorry, thanks. You probably remember the case for the innocence of Muslims, in which YouTube, which is owned by Google, refused to put it down because it doesn't concern a real person. Because in their conception of hate speech, it has to concern a real person belonging to a certain group with certain identity, and that would be regarded as hate speech. But Innocence of Muslim was a story directed against the Prophet Muhammad. So, yeah, eventually, yeah, but not in the beginning. Anyway, that's my point.
In this specific case, I know this young person. He's not more than 20 years old. He's leading a fan group of a football team, and he put this picture which generated this comment. I think it's dangerous enough to stop this picture, and it can influence his growing as person, as personality. At 20 years, you should know which is allowed, which is good, and which is not in a democratic country. I think he should be stopped now, not when it will be too late, because he is now a part of this group. Against homosexuals. He also participated this against gay pride in Chisinau action, not wearing a mask. He's sure he makes good legal things. Yeah.
I'm a journalist, so yes, freedom of expression, I'd like protected, but I also think this is serious, and this is one major abuse.
Can you use the mic?
Yeah.
Please raise your hand if you want a microphone.
So, I'm Lydia. I'm a journalist from Uganda. So, by default, I would fall with protect freedom of expression as far as it would go. But I also come from a country where a conference that was just hate speech in a hotel room later led to a legislation that actually, is promising people life in prison for being gay. So I think this is serious. So I'll just add to your criteria. Is it really important to also look at who is being targeted? Certain groups just have so much less power that even what seems like harmless, a joke, maybe, just an insult, grows, so could grow basically because that group can't defend itself. Like I say, the anti-gay campaign in Uganda started with a single conference, 3 American evangelists, spreading what all of us thought were really obvious lies. But this is where we are. We are at a place where, you could be in prison for life for being gay, and it caught on very fast. Mostly because we have very few gay people who are out and about. Or we didn't have LGBTI lobby to fight it. So I think how much power the target has is an important thing to think about when you're thinking, is this hate speech that could actually come to something dangerous?
Thank you. Who needs the microphone? Who wants to add something? Okay, I'll bring the microphone.
Sorry, the problem is we can't use the microphone no more because we
It's
weren't
too much.
supposed to use any microphones at all because the other group is disturbed. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay,
But this one is okay.
okay.
From Venezuela. It's only a question. When you try to clean or erase that bad language or hate, you can't make a pattern of the aggressor. It's a problem. I think that you need to make a pattern, the hours, who can be, who is the group, who is the person, and in that case you can act over the individuals and not over the ideas, because the ideas are liquid. And if you erase one picture, can make 100 more. Then if you go with the person, with the individuals, it's okay, because you are making higher the price of the hate speech. I think you are working in that. Are you working in that?
So we have to deal with the persons, not with ideas, not
Yeah.
with the idea of
To make
homophobia,
the
of Islamophobia or gypsy phobia. Yeah.
My name's Rebecca. I'm American, but I live in Rwanda. And I just wanted to share a comment of kind of a different example of hate speech, but then also the consequences after. I think Rwanda is probably best known for using hate speech and the role that hate media played in the genocide.
Can you please stand up? I think
Yep,
then the
sorry.
people in the corner will hear you.
Yep, okay, sorry. So my name's Rebecca. I'm just trying to share an example from Rwanda, but also the opposite consequences that it can have on that debate between protection and then freedom of expression. Rwanda is probably best known for the role that hate speech played in the genocide in 1994 and the role that the radio played. But now it's gone to the absolute opposite extreme, where people are not comfortable to speak, and there's a law against genocide ideology and trying to prevent that kind of hate speech, but very undefined and very flexible in terms of how the government uses it and how that can be used to put down any kind of freedom of expression. And because of that, journalists self-censor, people self-censor, etc., because you never know what could be defined as hate speech and how the government could judge that and what the consequences could be. And there was a journalist a few years ago in the lead up to the election who reported on what somebody else said, and she got 33 years for reporting hate speech. So it can also go in just the opposite extreme, just to share the example.
So what should we do to make the role of the judge when we see the message, the picture, the movie? We can't wait for a court decision, for a law, for a standard. We have to act, especially when we are in a group of 10,000 in Vkontakte or v Odnoklassniki. A lot of people is following that message. It is radio in Rwanda, in the war, in the civil war. So you have to make something, to do something. Let's listen to the...
My name is Laura. I work for unconferences. Unconferences is a human rights organization that focuses on freedom of expression. I guess we have a lot of international studies how to balance hate speech and freedom of expression. And we should base this debate on these international standards. Including Art Connecting has a paper on how to balance hate speech and freedom of expression. But I'm Brazilian, and I will speak from the Brazilian experience. We approved 3 weeks ago the Marco Civil Law, and we have a lot of problems of hate speech on the internet, especially against women's rights. In Brazil, we stand the court order. And we believe, the civil society groups in Brazil believe this is the best option that we have, because the judges are the ones prepared to do this balance between rights, because sometimes to have controversial ideas published, it's an opportunity for us to react against these controversial ideas. So the civil society in Brazil is very happy with this way the court orders, and I believe if it's not too fast, a court order is not too fast, or you have problems with the decisions that the court takes, you should think how to reform your law system, your courts, your justice system, not to blame the applications or the way that we have the service providers or these platforms. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Agnès. I'm currently working at Columbia University, where I'm running a new initiative on freedom of expression and information. I worked for Article 19 before, but we didn't plan to speak in this, for me to speak right after Laura. I just wanted to make 3 points. The first one is that I think it's important to recognize that there is a variety of hate speech, and to combine them into a single category, whether it's called hatred or dangerous, is not very helpful, both from a policy standpoint and from a civil society standpoint. And to be able to determine level of danger associated with the speech, I think is particularly important. Under international human rights law, the international community, back in when they adopted the ICCPR, did grade more or less the speeches, and they asked the member states and the international community to take action when the speech amounts to an incitement speech, not when it's just, quotation mark, a hate speech. It does not mean that governments cannot take actions when you are dealing with a more garden variety type of hate speech. But under international law, there is a level of speeches that really require, that mandate from government that they intervene, and those are the speeches that are described under Article 20 of the ICCPR, and they are usually described as incitement speeches, incitement to violence, in particular to hostility or discrimination. And as Laura was mentioning, Article 19 a year ago has published an interpretation of what incitement means and the threshold that a speech needs to meet in order to require direct intervention. The second point I want to make is that with civil society and governments, including in Europe, have tried to fight hate speech for many years now, including hate speech online. In November this last year, I attended a 2-day meeting organized by the UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Form of Racism. And that meeting focused on racism online and how to act against hate speech online. There were a variety of people, some of whom may still be in the room. And one of the key findings from everywhere, from around the world, including from people who have fought very hard what you're trying to fight now, which is criminalization and taking down the speech, is that it actually has very little impact. It may make us feel good, it may give us the impression that we've taken action, we really fought, but in fact it has very limited impact on racism, on how people are going to behave and how they are going to act. It doesn't mean that there is no space for it. There is a space, of course, for legal, for maybe not for criminalization necessarily, but there is certainly a space for legal action. But it cannot be, it should not be, and it must not be the focus of our intervention, because it's not going to work. The most important measures that can be taken got to be counter messaging, providing the people around us, providing the kids you're talking about and so worried about, providing them with other sources, other forms of speeches, giving them a context where the Romas can speak, where they can have access to the public media, where they can actually provide their own view of themselves, not doing that through various sources. So the environment for an environment where you can create counter speeches and ensure that those messages, these voices, the positive voices, are actually going into the mainstream media, into education, into, very importantly, political leaders. Because we focus on media, we focus on Facebook, we completely forgot the role of the political leaders, who in many ways have far more impact on how the public consciousness is grasping those issues. And thirdly, I just wanted to refer you to the report of the Special Rapporteur on contemporary form of racism in March. That rapporteur issued his report, which was the outcome of the conference we had in November. You can find it online. I just checked, and it presents a variety of solutions, things that have been tried, things that have worked, things that don't work so much, and hopefully it can give all of us a bigger panoply of actions to take. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm afraid in my country, our president is not so influential as an internet activist can be. So it's more important what an internet activist will say on his web page or on a group made by him than our president says. Let's listen to you and then to you.
So I also attended an OHCHR seminar this past year in the Arab region, and I think that one of the things about hate speech is there's a lack of understanding about what that is in several regions, and there's no right not to be insulted. And so I think, building on what Agnes says, is we need to educate people about what hate speech is and what it is not as well, and creating multiple venues for competing ideas to get out, because that's absolutely the way that they have to get out. But I think I agree about the incitement as being the level, and I think the Dangerous Speech Project, which builds on Susan Bennett's work in terms of thinking about a framework for identifying that speech, is can be useful when you're trying to create a tool that will automatically identify hate speech that will then of course require a person to go through and look through. But I think one of the problems is that, for example, in Europe, if you look at a lot of the European Court of Justice rulings, they're a much lower threshold than incitement. And so that's also something we have to look at. We have different standards, in the US, in Europe, at the international level. And so, how do we also reconcile that? I think that's something we have to come to terms with. But I think definitely helping people in countries and regions without a tradition of free speech to understand what hate speech is and what it is not is also a really important part of media and information literacy.
Thank you.
I think I'm Reza. I'm from Bangladesh. Yes, that's our friends from Article 19 and also refer to the special rapporteur. But there is also a report from Frank LaRue in 2012, item number 3 or 2, I forget. He also actually, particularly that report actually talked about the hate speech issues. But my interest is more other place. As you know that there is an international convention, 1965, regarding the anti-discrimination or racism. So through the UPR process and other process now, and other international process now, many of the developing countries or the semi-peripheral countries are enacting the Anti-Discrimination Act or Anti-Racism Act. So probably for civil society, this is a great opportunity. I mean, in our case in Bangladesh at this point, we have a bill, and that is introduced by the Law Commission. So that is a great opportunity for civil society, probably using that particular act to put and define or try to engage with that hate speech, offline or online, both ways possible. So that's the opportunity probably we have also to utilizing the other event convention process or other national approaches which have been taken into the national jurisdiction.
Thank you. I'm afraid we've finished our time for discussions, but I thought we have a comment here. Let's be brief as we can, and the last comment may be there. So, you'll be the last.
Users are from Belarus. It's strange for me to listen about tolerance or so, freedom of speech. For my opinion, this is not freedom of speech, or this is not a hate speech. This is a criminal violence. All that we saw here.
Especially the videos.
Both. When the account's name is Kill of Gypsies, all Romans, this is also is criminal by most of European laws. I don't know about the States, but in Europe, if somebody pronounced it publicly via TV or in the street, it will be jail. This person would be jailed. But in the internet, you should apply to the court, or you should complain to the social network administration. I was assaulted by a person by somebody with anti-Semitic speech. I complained to Facebook, and after a week or so, I got the message that my complaint is not adequate. It was okay. I didn't complain again, but 2 months later, there came a message that my complaint is re-examined, and this person is banned. It took 2 months. I think that social network and the forum administrations should be more responsible to such issues and undertake measures before the court when the cases are absolutely evident. And only when they are not evident, it should go through the court. For example, I'm a founder of the Belarusians' biggest web portal website. We have discussions, also, message boards, forums, and there are also a lot of hate speech expressions.
Comments. In comments. Not in news,
comments,
but in comments.
Yeah, comments. And we have from 7 to 10 moderators who delete hate speech. Actually, we must delete 80% of the opinions. And despite that, in the rest of the 20% comments, there are also hate speech, and we advise them to go to the court. Thank you.
Thank you too. And the last comment, please.
Yeah, so I mostly agree with the things that were said by Agnes and Courtney, and so I'm not going to get into the separation of definitions. But in terms of the addressing of hate speech, one of the issues that I keep hearing that I'm cringing at is the idea that you want companies to regulate it for you. So when you say Facebook didn't take it down or YouTube didn't take it down, I wonder why you want to trust a multi-billion-dollar company to decide for you what is good speech, what is bad speech. I understand. Personally, I draw the line. I mean, I take a very American perspective, and I draw the line only at incitement, not at insult. I realize that that's not the case in Europe or in other places, and I accept that. But I do think that whatever the speech, this is something that should not be dealt with by relying on American companies, or any companies for that matter, to do it for you. You know, if you look at Facebook, last year there was a group of feminist organizations that tried to get Facebook to take down images that constituted violence against women. Some of them were absolutely incitement, some of them were just disgusting jokes. Regardless, their effort, they got Facebook to listen to them, they got Facebook to talk to them, but has it actually done anything? No, because Facebook doesn't have the capacity to do that, nor do they have the staff, nor do they care. There was a report a couple years ago that Facebook employs people, and I can't verify this is true, I don't know if anybody from Facebook is here, but that some of the people who do the content moderation are outsourced in other countries and getting paid under the legal minimum wage. Like, is that really who you want regulating speech? It's not what I want.
Thank you. And now the last comment.
Sorry. So IHUB, myself, Nanjira, and a few other folks are actually coming together to Burma next month for the first convening of what will be kind of dangerous speech practitioners and others. And there are several of you who have very interesting thoughts, and if you're interested in at least keeping tabs on what's going on, would love to get your contact. So I'll be up here maybe after this. Thanks.
Thank you to all for participating and helping me to make this unconference, maybe the last one for this day. Thank you very much.
Welcome everyone for dinner at Magasinet, which is